page 256. This also results in very many illnesses which become more and more predominant in the human existence. A few should be mentioned here. Angina pectoris, or heart disease, various other heart conditions, nervous breakdown, neuritis, or nerve inflammation, gout, certain brain disorders, nervous constipation, anemia or chlorosis, intestinal disorders, cramps, gastric disturbances, insomnia, tuberculosis, pains of all kinds, cramping of the organs or vegetative afflictions, depression, anxiety, and sweating outbreaks, aggression, frustration, last-minute panic or anxiety of the future, and so on and so forth. Irritability, work without joy, hasty or hoggish eating, fear, etc., and all the above-mentioned terrible modes of thinking promote in the state of excitation and overstimulation of the adrenal glands, which are located above the kidneys. These are also called the, quote, crazy glands, because they secrete digestive substances and flood the blood with chemicals that strengthen fighting power whenever the human being is geared up for a conflict or for a fight and therefore needs the necessary power. Quote, adrenaline, as this secretion is called, neutralizes itself again only then when the vexation, the irritation, or the fight, etc. are over, but this also only through the secretion of a lethargy-inducing acid of the muscles, which mixes with the blood and neutralizes the adrenaline, through which the calming effect is achieved. If the inner life and the psyche are, however, in turmoil, etc., the inner muscles are not able to secrete enough of the milky calming acid in order to placate the human being with it. Therefore, the adrenaline, evoked and secreted through the excitation of the human being, puts him or her into special aggressiveness and readiness to fight during this time. This process and effect has a very unfavorable constricting effect on the intestines, the stomach, other organs, and also on the nerves. Consequently, the human being finds him or herself afflicted by the most impossible and diverse kinds of ailments, as for example, cold and heat shivers, nervous tremors, sweating outbreaks, headaches, dizziness, neurasthenia, neurosis, gallbladder problems, digestive troubles, liver and kidney diseases, gastric ulcers, constipation, diarrhea, crying fits, and so on and so forth. In his or her naked unknowledgeness, the human being does not recognize that by their own wrongdoing of their thoughts or mode of thinking, their thoughts themselves make the entire body, indeed even the entire life, into a human hell. The same human being who surmises that an unethical mode of life would even build up his or her vitality and physical strength. But every kind of letting oneself go in the most dubious and most primitive everyday thinking allows, fully unconsciously, a devastating residue of the daily malicious thought life to flow in and become effective. Irritability, rage, and vexation occur in three forms, all of which in the course of time bring forth devastating and self-destructive consequences. Firstly, that kind which gets very badly out of control of the good human nature outwardly and in external, quote, explosions. Secondly, that which inwardly, quote, implodes and, quote, eats oneself up. And thirdly, that which is not noticed and realized at all, and nevertheless spreads its destructive poison because it simmers under the surface in secret as exhausting, agitating, and deconstructing thoughts. Every human being carries, according to his or her consciousness greatness and thinking direction, an aura around him or herself, a power field of his or her consciousness-based radiation. The radiation of this aura can be categorized into the terms good or evil, according to the kind of thinking of the owner. It is saturated with the fluidum of the failure or the success, with antipathy or sympathy, because it always radiates exactly what the mode of thinking of the human being concerned creates. Thus, this power field radiates not only failures or success, antipathy or sympathy, but everything which the thinking direction creates. Love or hatred, unsatisfaction or satisfaction, greed, envy, jealousy, vice, addiction, suffering, sorrow, despair, disbelief, revenge, affliction, misery, or courage, fear, faithfulness, submissiveness, joy, intellect, equalizedness, energy and cognition, and so on and so forth. Through the thinking, with strong feelings, the human being unceasingly mobilizes the forming and shaping power of his or her thoughts, which then fertilize his or her fundamental thinking and deeds accordingly, and, due to their effect, bring forth the evoked consequences. If the once adopted thinking direction is pursued further, more and more things, circumstances, and Vasen put themselves at the service of the thought realization. Consequently, an affirmation of the life and of a success of it is therefore of the utmost importance. For what the human being intends in thoughts regarding a good and healthy mode of thinking is fundamentally decisive and of the greatest significance. This is the most reliable and only means, namely that the human being, with all his or her circumstances and things, goes the right way of thought, because only right thinking leads to the truth and to the success. The human being only has to allow him or herself to be instructed in this. From the vantage point of the human being, no time should be thereby wasted on using the power for the looking out for suitable helpers. Their own thoughts themselves must do the groundwork, so that the body of thoughts are orderly and directed towards the right lines.